recording here.
Oh, perfect.
All right.
Welcome. Let me put my game face on.
Yeah, take it away.
Welcome to ProductTank Pittsburgh, everybody. For those of you who have been here before, welcome back. And for those of you who have never been to one, welcome. So we're going to there's a standard slide deck that we'll go through here, and then we'll hand it off to our speakers. So I guess we'll start off. It's been, geez, Shawn, 5 months, almost 5 months since our last one.
Time flies when you can't leave home.
What's that?
Time flies when you can't leave home.
I know, right? So we went underground for the summer, which is sort of typical, but maybe a little longer than we would have liked. But we'll talk at the end here. We have another one coming up in about a month. So back to back, hitting you back to back here. So what is ProductTank? In short, it's a meetup. It started in London, where product managers get together and talk about their experiences and share ideas and network and all that fun stuff. So we haven't gotten new slides, and this is, geez, what is this? This is probably like coming up on the 4th or 5th year anniversary as well of Prod 5th year. I think it'll be, I don't know. We've been at this for 4 or 5 years, and we haven't gotten a new slide deck in 4 or 5 years. So I'm sure the number is higher than 140 cities and 50,000 members, but it's a global network, which is really awesome. This is a quick hit of all the cities that we know of as of this slide deck. And again, I'm sure that's longer. So we're just one of many. So how's it work? So Shawn and I are product managers, and we started this thing, and we invite product managers and product people, which includes UX and even product marketing or marketers, or even, we've had some sales ops people present. So basically they come in with a topic that's close to the product world that we can all learn from and talk through. And no pitches, though. We're not selling products here. We're not selling services here. We're just sharing and learning and networking. And when we're in person, we do more of that, and we even have even more fun with the in-person ones. So with that, next slide. So there's a whole, as part of ProductTank, it's an affiliate of Mind the Product. Those of you who are familiar with Mind the Product know what I'm talking about. It's just a phenomenal resource for product information, which includes these meetups and a Slack channel. Those of you who like the Slack, we'll talk about that in a second, different blogs and conferences. So we're part of that larger Mind the Product community, which again is a phenomenal resource for the product folks. So if you have an interest in doing so, there's a Mind the Product Slack channel that I believe is still free to join, and you could get on there, and it's another way to network. It's another way to, find out tips and best practices and meet people from all over the world on the Slack channel. There's a blog. You could write for the blog, so you don't have to be Ken Norton. That's who that guy is right there, from formerly of Google. You don't have to be Ken Norton to write for the blog. You could be Chris Bevel writing for the blog. You just submit that to the email address. Sorry, Chris, you were the first name that I saw there. You could be him, and you send it to editor@mindtheproduct.com, and they may select your article to be in their monthly newsletter and on their website. So again, it's a good way for you as a product person to show some thought leadership through, again, a good resource for product folks. There's a weekly newsletter now. Things have changed since our last meetup, and I believe the weekly newsletter is now a pay-to-play service. Am I correct in saying that, Shawn?
I believe so. I think there's some middle ground. They're kind of operating like a freemium situation.
Yeah. So check it out. I know Shawn will back me up on this. It's great. I think Shawn used the words one time, a well-curated newsletter is how he stated that. Really good articles, really relevant articles, and relatively brief. So you're not reading like a manifesto on something. You're reading something that's very consumable and that you get a lot from. So even at whatever pay price there is, it's still worth it. So go to if you're interested in that, check it out. And to Shawn's point, there may be a freemium version. I thought there was no sales. I feel like I'm selling right now. This is
we don't work for Mind the Product, but we do like using the name.
No sales unless it's them. So there is a Mind the Product job board as well. If you're looking for a job, I actually tried to post a position here and it didn't work. So there was some wonkiness in the interface. So not a lot of people are posting in the Pittsburgh area, but hey, you know, Corey's going to talk about how he just got a job in Silicon Valley and he lives in Pittsburgh. So now that we're all stuck at home, people are hiring from all over the place. So if you're looking for a new gig somewhere, check out the Mind the Product job board. And also, you know, our network here is, I think, 1,000 people actually on the Meetup and close to 200 on the LinkedIn. So if you're looking for a job, you know, you can reach out to Shawn or I and let us know, or just post something to the message boards that we have on Meetup or LinkedIn. Say looking for a new gig, or if you're looking to hire somebody, same thing. Let us know, and we can maybe have some feelers out there to try to help fill a position. I think did we fill 2, Shawn?
Yeah, we've made a couple of love connections over the last few years.
Yeah, and you know, I think I got lunch out of one because it was for a friend, but we don't really get anything out of it. But again, it's just helping the product community. So check it out. Lastly, I don't know what Shawn. Do you know what they're doing with their conferences?
Yeah, so they've obviously canceled all the in-person conferences. But one thing that's cool, if you go to either this mtpcon.com or mindtheproduct.com, they've opened up a lot of the speaker videos that have been the focus of these conferences, which is actually really nice. I've been to the last few of them in San Francisco. As you see, they did them around the world before they were all canceled. But I believe they're virtualizing the speakers. I've seen a few of them, and it's just a really cool way to get, you know, news or interesting hot takes on product from people who are pretty prominent in the field, which is pretty solid. Oh, I see Greg. I'm looking at the chat. Thank you, Greg. There's an insider tier for the newsletter as well. So there's a link there in the chat if you'd like to hit that up. But for what they release for free, I think there's some really high quality stuff. It's just, you know, like I'm sure everyone on this call works in and around product, and sometimes it's hard to find, again, like kind of well curated voices. They do that, I think, pretty well. So it's worth checking out the site and hitting those videos up for kind of a breath of fresh product air every now and then.
And for what it's worth, I mean, to add to what Shawn said, like some of these presentations are like the best of the best. Like not so much, I mean, the people are like really good, but just like they really hit home, and you'll take something away. It's well worth a half an hour of your time or 45 minutes just to watch one. They're really good presentations. Not as good as what Corey's going to do in the next 5 or 7 minutes, but pretty good. So there was a question I saw about sharing the slides afterwards. We're going to post the video to YouTube eventually. We actually don't have a good way to share content through the means that Mind the Product gives us. But if
we had a Dropbox at some point, I think we lost. But I think we can maybe throw up a slide share and get links out to the meetup.
Okay.
And to ProductTankPittsburgh.com.
Cool. So who we are. We're product guys, Shawn and I. We work in product. I'm like reading it here, right? And like the way Mind the Product kind of positions them, like their take on product management aligns kind of with how we do things, right? So learning from others, and socializing that with like-minded people. So, you know, that's kind of why we started this. Just thought, you know what, let's have one of these in Pittsburgh. We have opinions. We like to chime in. We like others to chime in, right? Because Corey's going to talk about his experiences, and it's going to be great. But some of you may have experiences too, where you can say, "Oh, I handled that a different way," or "Yeah, that what he's saying works," or "He doesn't know what he's talking about." And we say those for afterwards. But that's who we are. This is where to find us. So you found us through one of these 2 sources. You know, meetup.com is like the home of Product Tank Pittsburgh. But what I don't like about Meetup, I say we don't like, is whenever we notify the group that there's a meetup, you just get an email amongst all your other emails, and emails in your home address is like, to me, it's like mind numbing. But that's why we started this LinkedIn group, which if you go to ProductTankPittsburgh.com, it redirects there. We started the group because then you can find out about these meetups in your world, in your daily viewing of LinkedIn. You'll say, oh, the next one's been posted. And so you'll find us both ways. But we're not necessarily we don't necessarily blow your inbox up unless there's a meeting coming up. We don't solicit any information or whatnot from people in between meetings or anything. So we try to keep that to a minimum. So you found us, and if you want to join the LinkedIn one, you can find us twice. We do have a sponsor. It is and it's not working out. Like they're a great sponsor, but like we were supposed to have events at CMU and food and you name it, give away shirts and blah 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 blah. Turns out we're all stuck at home. So we still say they're a great sponsor of ours, the MSPM program at Carnegie Mellon University. So thank you so much to that fine group of individuals. Before we turn over to Corey, I will say mark your calendars because we got the next one. Oh, that's not his. That's a copy and paste error. That is not his Twitter account, but it should be. He should be Jay Boogie. I'll tell him about that. Our next speaker is Jeff Lizick. He is the president and CEO of Redshift Digital Marketing. And he classifies himself as digital marketer, serial entrepreneur, and agency owner. So, Jeff's going to come and talk about his experiences in the product world. And like right now, he's focusing a lot on digital marketing, but he's got a lot of insights from his previous job. He's worked for Heinz, was one of the bigger ones that he worked for. Had a really good story. He and I talked about Bagel Bites and how they really changed their go-to-market strategy just based solely on packaging. So I don't know if he'll tell that one, but Jeff's got a lot of good stories, a lot of interesting tidbits to share with the group. So that's in less than a month. We'll have Jeff here virtually with us. So mark it. And we just, if you don't see the announcement right away, it's because we actually, this is like the insider scoop. We post the meetups like 2 weeks before because we found that when people sign up a month ahead, they definitely forget to come. So our attendance rate is better when we post them later. So we'll post this probably right around Halloween, a little bit before Halloween, then the next 2 weeks. So with that, I'd like to hand the virtual mic and the virtual stage over to Corey Grone. He just got a new job this week. He's 3 days in and already declined his first meeting just to be here with you guys at Pure Storage out of Silicon Valley. And he's going to talk about managed services product management. So with that, Corey, I hand it over to you and Tiger King, I guess.
Great.
Speaking of
thanks.
Has anyone seen, speaking of Tiger King, has anyone seen the video of the guy getting chased by a cougar on some trail? I just saw it this morning. It just happened.
No.
Like the cougar's like apparently the guy got close to the cougar cubs. And so that he's like backing up. He's on video. And like the cougar's like walking, but then he gets on his legs like that, back down. And it goes on for like 6 minutes, and then the guy throws a rock and the cougar runs away. But it's pretty intense. So check that out as well.
If you're feeling like a dearth of big large cats in your life after Joe Exotic, it's one thing to check out. Oh, one other bit. Since this is a Zoom thing, if you have questions during the presentation, probably best just to throw them in the chat. We'll be watching that. We can break through and ask them at break points or just afterwards as we do a Q&A. So
and
basically Zoom call. And
if you feel like you want to do anything lewd, please don't.
Or turn your camera off. Either way is good.
All right, I'm going to shut up.
I mean, I feel like we should just cancel this presentation and we should just all watch this 6-minute video of this dude getting chased by a cougar, because that sounds a lot more exciting than whatever I'm going to talk about. But I will do my best to rise to the level of excitement and entertainment as a person almost being killed by a wild animal. So, I'll put in another plug for the stuff at Mind the Product. When Nate first asked me to put together this presentation, I was like, let me just Google the stuff at Mind the Product and see if I could just completely rip off an existing presentation there, because I doubt I'll say anything too new. But yeah, a lot of great resources there. So today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my experiences in product management, and we'll get to the tagline here in a bit. How through most of my career, I feel like I've been doing the job of product manager with at least one hand tied behind my back, sometimes two hands, and I have to try to kick and chew my way out of situations. But before we get started, a little bit about me. So I got a bachelor's in computer engineering, go Pitt. I was in IT operations for about 5 years of my career. I got another degree from Pitt, so I gave them a whole lot of my money You know, I guess I've seen the value. If I didn't have the Zoom wallpaper up, you could see behind me on the wall I have my 2 diplomas mounted, and that's about it. But I took a detour after that and spent 2 years working in rural India, which is a whole, you know, I could talk at length about that experience. It was a wonderful experience. Came back, moved into more IT management for a couple of years in my career, working for a local company here in Pittsburgh called Management Science Associates, the other MSA, not Mine Safety Appliance. Then I started to get into the product management game around 2015. It was something that was really intriguing to me. And, you know, what attracted me was, and I think this will hopefully resonate with a lot of you, that what attracted me to product management was the interdisciplinary generalist nature of it. Throughout my career, I've really dabbled in a lot of different things. I haven't gone too deep or become a specialist in any one area. I prefer to, you know, change up my day to day. And so, as you all know, doing the job of product manager means we get to talk to all kinds of different folks in the interest of a product that we're trying to help grow. And so you know, at that point, I basically built out my experience with some local, regional, and then international at my most recent position, international cloud service providers. So these are, everybody, when they think cloud, they think about Amazon, AWS, and there's actually a whole huge niche of the cloud market that is that is not those big names like AWS and Azure. And there's a lot of good reasons for that. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But before that, I want to really try to make this participatory. And so what I want to hear from you guys is, what do you think I'm going to talk about? What is your definition of managed services? Some of you may be hearing this term for the first time. So I don't know anything is a fine answer, but you know, when I usually do these presentations live, I have to ask everyone to get out their smartphones, but hey, we're all sitting in front of computers today. So fire up a new browser tab, go to menti.com and put in that code. And it's just going to be a word cloud, so you can put in whatever words you'd like. And hopefully they will show up here as folks start to put them in. Let me see if I can do my own here. Oh, I don't know if this is actually gonna, this should be live updating. See, this is what I get for, okay. This is what I get for using fancy pants technology in my presentations. I'll show you guys what I'm seeing. You guys see this word cloud here? Okay. So I see outsourced, perfect. Ooh, that's interesting. SaaS, hard, see, product, profit, provider of IT services, okay. Specialized services. I don't know what value means. I guess value, maybe. We'll just give it another few seconds here to see if anybody else wants to participate. Operations versus development, okay. Virtualization, okay. So yeah, seems like a pretty wide breadth of understanding. And hopefully I'll be able to share a little bit about my experiences in the field with y'all. Sorry, the company I just worked for a couple of years was based in Houston, Texas, so I've started to say y'all sometimes. So my answer is that, you know, managed services is all of those things that we just talked about, right? And my specialty or my experience has been mostly within what I would call kind of a segment of managed services called cloud services. This is a bit of a loose term, but essentially this is kind of the diagram that we always throw up to explain to folks some of the different flavors of cloud services that we all consume. And starting from the left, really this is the traditional kind of IT service environment that most companies are used to operating in, right? They manage everything.
Hey, Corey, you might want to switch your slides back. I'm just seeing a white screen here.
Okay.
I don't know if that's just me.
All right. All right, can you guys see this diagram?
Yep, that looks good.
Okay, still hold on. There we go. Can you see this picture here? Or is it blank?
Yep.
You got it? Okay.
Services? Yep.
Yep. And so what Amazon really was the first to market with was what's called infrastructure as a service. And so basically folks like Amazon or other cloud service providers take roughly, you know, half of the stack off your plate. And so that includes things like, you know, all the computer hardware and operating systems and all of that stuff, the data center operations, all that stuff you don't have to worry about anymore. And there's a lot of great reasons why we all, you know, a lot of folks choose to use infrastructure as a service because, and you know, I love the phrase that Amazon coined to describe this, which is it's undifferentiated heavy lifting. And what that means is, you know what, if you like keep your data centers 2% cooler than your competitors, does anybody care? If your servers are, you know, you're able to squeeze another 6 months of life out of your servers, do your customers care? Probably not. This is the work that until the advent of cloud, you know, everybody just had to do this work if you were in business, but not everybody was very good at it. And if you were good at it, that didn't necessarily make you 2x or 10x better than your next competitor. So it's undifferentiated heavy lifting. As we move further to the right, then we start to see things like platform as a service or PaaS. And this means that the cloud provider is doing even more on the user's behalf or the customer's behalf. So that's where you start to see things like Heroku was probably the first to market or the biggest to market with this PaaS idea where it was like, listen, your developers don't care about, you know, managing databases and all that stuff. Let us do that for you. Let us patch your Python versions and your Node.js versions, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, we'll take care of everything but the code. The only thing you need to bring to a PaaS solution is the code itself. And again, a lot of undifferentiated heavy lifting taken off the plates of customers. And then what's missing to the right that somebody mentioned in the last slide was software as a service. And that's where everything all the way up to you know, the application itself is hosted and managed by the outsourced provider. So let me ask you guys, and I'll call on someone if nobody volunteers, why would somebody buy a cloud service like this? All right, so let's see, Kartik. I'm picking random names. What do you think?
Yeah, I was typing it. It's a maintenance headache, right? So I would definitely go with outsourcing vendors so that you don't have to manage all these things.
Okay. All right, who else has an answer to why would someone buy this?
I would say scale is a big benefit. So if you're wanting to stand up an entire new business or a new product or a new technical infrastructure, it's definitely easier to go the cloud route.
Okay, great answer.
Another thing I think about with this is capital expense versus operating expense. It can change your bottom line numbers.
Yep, that's absolutely right. It seems like it's a totally non-technical. There's a lot of technical stuff on this slide, but it's a totally non-technical reason, but it's a very powerful reason. Who else has an answer?
Security and resilience.
Okay, can you expand on that, Greg?
Well, if you outsource to experts in a given area, you don't need to train and hire dedicated security team internally.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, if I can, a lot of these specialists, especially when it comes to security, you know, if I had a time machine, I would get in it and go back to my the start of my career and say you should be a security person, because as anyone who has ever tried to hire or retain information security professionals, they are expensive and in demand. And if you don't have enough scale, it's hard to maintain that function internally.
I don't mean to imply you don't need security personnel, but things like maintaining server patches and best practices, things like that are beyond the scope of many organizations.
Yep, that's absolutely right. Who else has an answer?
So this may be providing you the multiple options for your development team. Like you can go with any programming language or any databases. You no need to, based on the business needs. I think this infrastructure is going to provide you the multiple options for a development team.
So
right?
if I can paraphrase what I heard you say, so the additional flexibility or agility to try new things,
yes.
Or to get started with exploration or experimentation without having to jump through a million hoops, that's
Correct.
hugely beneficial. Is that right, Ranga?
Yes, correct, Corey. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Anybody else have an answer? Okay, so moving on, and we're gonna circle back to that a little bit later. But when I, you know, in my career, when I've been faced with the opportunity of building out a new cloud service or a new managed service, for me it comes back to the classic product management decision or dilemma that a lot of us are facing now, or have faced, or certainly will face in our careers, which is build, buy, or partner. And you know, that's really what it comes down to here. And so just a quick run through for those of you who haven't been faced with some of these decisions in your career yet. You know, there's trade-offs with each approach. So, you know, building primary technology yourself, and I have a quote here, you know, the famous quote from Steve Jobs, and you can see, you know, I think Apple is probably one of the most the biggest examples of a company that has a primarily build strategy. They really want to own everything of their entire stack, from the UI all the way down to the manufacturing process overseas for those devices, right? You get the maximum amount of control. You get the maximum amount of potential IP ownership, differentiation, and, you know, the moat that is created through proprietary intellectual property. However, it doesn't come for free. When you make a decision to build a new feature or a new product, you're going to have usually a much longer time to market. You're going to have to spend a lot more money on, you know, capital on. Well, you're gonna have to spend a lot of money on people typically to build this out for you. You don't have to necessarily always spend a lot of capital, though. You don't have to, like, especially these days with COVID, you don't even have to necessarily rent an office, et cetera. So you can get pretty far without laying out a lot of upfront capital with a build approach. But there's a really high development risk. You know, this is the situation that nearly all startups find themselves in, which is you really got to hope you have product market fit. Because if you can spend an awful lot of developer time creating something that misses the mark. And there's countless examples in our industries of that happening. So let's talk about buy. You know, I included a quote here from Mark Zuckerberg about the Instagram acquisition, right? There's a lot of reasons why companies decide to buy their way into a new product or new feature or new market. It definitely has a faster time to market than building your own. One of the downsides is, you know, you got to lay out a lot of capital or a lot of equity to make that transaction happen. A lot of times, you know, maybe you're licensing some technology or intellectual property from a different company. Again, you're shelling out cash no matter what. There's a lower development risk because when you're buying a piece of technology that's established in the market, or you're buying an entire company that's established in the market, you have a much less risk that you can kind of assume that they've kind of found their market already to some degree. But you have much lower control and flexibility. And then finally, partner, which is where I've had a lot of my experience. When partnerships are great, it truly is 1 + 1 = 3. So the sum is greater than the parts, and both partners benefit greatly from the partnership. It has the fastest time to market. You know, partnerships can be as simple as a press release, you know, and so you can tend to spin up partnerships and spin down partnerships pretty quickly. However, this is the option that leaves you the lowest amount of control and flexibility because, again, both sides of the equation, both partners they're kind of doing their own thing. They have their own resources, they have their own roadmaps and plans, and yes, they can influence each other, but ultimately there's really not a ton of leverage that one can apply to the other, usually, as long as they're both you know, successful businesses. But again, low resource costs, low capital costs. Like I said, partnerships you can launch with a press release. That takes just one person to produce, right? There is a high coordination cost. So, you know, again, so the company I just joined, Pure Storage, has an entire team of, probably a couple dozen people dedicated to managing the partnerships, the alliances that Pure is engaged in. And, you know, I'm sure those people aren't cheap. So there's a lot of work that goes into coordinating a partnership. Any questions about what I just ran through? Or any points anybody wants to add that's been through some of those experiences? Okay, so let's focus in a little bit more on what have been my experiences in this kind of decision-making process and in my career. So mostly I've gone the partner route. This market niche of service providers that I've talked about, a lot of them are, you know, shy about CapEx, even prior to COVID, right? And so the idea of acquiring another company was usually off the table, or the idea of hiring, you know, 10 developers at, you know, couple $100,000 or $300,000 a year was also off the table. So partnership was really one of the few options that was on the table. And as I said, you know, the benefits I've experienced are really riding the wave of mutual success. Each partner can fill in gaps in the other partner that, again, are incredibly advantageous to both. Again, when it's worked really well, I have experienced that having a lot of influence with a partner on their things like pricing and their roadmap and so forth. You know, there's a lot of, I think that should read free marketing. I've also experienced a heck of a lot of free marketing in my day. You know, the companies I've worked for have really had heavily subsidized marketing teams and marketing campaigns from partnerships, and that's pretty cool. But there are some challenges. And one of the quotes that, or the phrases that's come to my head over and over in my time is this one about the chicken is involved in breakfast, but the pig is committed to breakfast. And for those of you who hadn't heard that phrase before, you sort of get the meaning, right? In a partnership, you have to really be careful about the balance of leverage and power. You don't want to be the partner that needs the partnership, that has to maintain the partnership, because then you lose leverage. And you got to be careful, because again, in my experience with partners, yes, we were partners. Yes, we had a lot of joint marketing and enablement and a lot of great joint sales stuff going on, but ultimately at some level, we were the partner's customer. And I saw that play out in a few ways that wasn't so great. Because it's easy to be convinced that you're the chicken and that this is a truly equal partnership and, blah, 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 when in reality, you're the pig. Also, there's opportunity costs. So in each of these organizations that I've worked for, when we've made a decision to go partner with company X and we're going to attack this market with this solution, oftentimes people don't realize all the things they're giving up by making that decision. You got to be very careful, and just because you like this salesperson, or you're convinced that company X is the next hot thing, you got to recognize that there's other things you could be doing with that time and money, and what are the value of those for your customers. And then finally, loss of focus. So again, in the technology industry where I've worked, you got to be careful about I've seen countless examples of companies that are, for example, like a smaller managed service provider or a value-added reseller. And when you look at their websites, they've got like 36 logos on their websites of like, here are our partners. And when you send that message, customers and potential partners quickly realize, like, these people just are shoving logos into their truck, and they're just trying to sell me anything, and this is not a true partnership. But like I said, I've had a lot of great experiences with partnership in my time in technology, and when it works really, really well for a managed service provider, it kind of looks like this. So this is the product lifecycle that we all know and love, right? And the trick is, you don't want to get involved in a partner that's really still in the development stage of their business or their product, because there's a huge amount of risk there that then you sort of get back into some of the same risks that come with building the solution yourself, right? You can do damage to your own reputation by going to market with a product that's not fully baked. And so forth. So you really want to avoid that partnership at the very, very, very beginning stages. You also don't want to partner there. Once a product or a company has reached really maturity and saturation, you know what? You're the 25th partner on the list, and maybe we'll get to you, maybe we'll talk to you. But you know what? We've got 24 other people that are partners that are doing business with us, and they're doing great. So yeah, you're great too, number 25. But really, at this point, the market's pretty saturated, and there's not a lot of room for another kind of Me Too partnership. So you definitely don't want to be there at maturity and saturation. When I've seen it work best, it's really at that transition from an introduction phase of a product to the growth phase of a product. That's really the sweet spot to get in. And I've seen this happen a couple times in my career, because then both companies get to really ride that wave. And in fact, they can help boost that wave of growth. Partner for a product or a company that's just exiting the introduction phase and really trying to ramp up growth, having brand name partners can really boost their credibility with the market. And for a whole wide variety of reasons, that is the sweet spot that every managed services provider that I've worked for is trying to find in their next partner. Any questions about this? Okay. This is really just the second example I have of a really good partner decision that really works out well. So this is actually a snapshot of inbound leads from a single partner over the last 6 months at my previous company. So you can see, again, I haven't worked for gigantic companies. I'm in a much bigger one now, but for a company that's got 250 employees, having 200 leads, roughly between 20 and 35 leads from a single partner coming into warm leads coming into a sales team every month is huge. And most folks that I know that have these kinds of partnerships would kill for this level of activity from a partner. So with this particular partner, this was the first time I'd ever experienced this in my career where, I could go to any person that had an organization, and this was a gigantic company, from a inside sales representative that's on their third week on the job to executive vice president that's been there for 20 years. Everybody knew the name Island Cloud. And everybody knew our reputation, and everybody was comfortable handing off leads, calling up folks on our side, and working collaboratively to promote the business. And that's the first time I've experienced that level of penetration in a partnership. And a lot of that was due to the fact that, coming back to my previous slide, Island partnered with this company right at that stage of high growth, and was able to ride that growth with the partner, and was able to establish themselves as essentially the #1 managed services provider for that technology company in the world. And so this is the Shangri-La that I think all of us are hoping to achieve when we decide to partner to do business. Any questions about that? All right, I think that was it for my my presentation. So my contact information is there. If you have any questions about this, yeah, that's all I got.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Corey. So how about we just open it up to some general Q&A? Are there any questions about, for Corey about the presentation as a whole or any particular part of it? Shout them out, if you prefer to unmute yourself or throw them into the chat here.
Hey, Corey, this is Nate. I have a question.
Yes.
You'd mentioned like your preference has been to partner versus buy, right?
Well, because of the circumstances of the businesses that I worked for, the other two were rarely an option.
Okay, I was gonna say, could you describe what were those circumstances? Like when, what are you looking for out of a buy versus a build versus a partner type situation?
One of the biggest blockers is how sensitive is the company to capital expense. That's one of the biggest early determining factors in that decision-making process. And you can sort of, it really comes down to the culture of the company, and you can kind of look around and figure out what kind of company you're working for, right? I think for some other companies, the idea of owning the intellectual property or certain parts of the intellectual property drives that decision as well. Again, a lot of sort of precedent and history of these are the areas where we always want to build. You know what I'm saying? So even if there is a technology on the market we could buy, we still want to build because that's the way we do it here. I've sat in on sales pitches from other technology companies where they, even the field sales rep is touting the fact that, 100% of our intellectual property is developed in-house. We don't buy people and try to stitch companies together. So those decisions can translate and trickle down in a variety of ways. And a lot of it has to do, like I said, sensitivity to capital expenditure or access to capital. and culture.
No, that makes sense. Thanks. I have a follow-up, but I'll let a different question, but I'll let other people ask before I go again.
Greg, looks like you might have one.
Well, I have some follow-on thoughts on that discussion. A really important part of selecting an MSP is finding someone that you can trust and work with over time and like form a relationship, as opposed to just, you know, transacting, stand this one thing up and say goodbye and get paid. So the trust factor is huge. And also there's something to keep in mind about what is your core value proposition in your company. And should you be outsourcing the things that are part of your core value proposition? Probably not. And then the flip side of that is, should you be outsourcing the things that are not part of your core value proposition? And the answer to that question is often yes.
Yeah, I agree, Greg. And you know, an example of that is when you go to most companies and you say, is running a data center part of your core value proposition? For 99% of the companies out there, the answer is going to be no. Why would I care, right? However, I've worked for a couple now where that absolutely is a part of the core value proposition of the company, and so their decision is different.
Right. And in those cases, you might outsource a subset of management of those servers, but certainly not the whole farm.
Yep.
How about your follow-up, Nate?
Sure. So like, I used to work at a company, and Shawn did too, where we were an on-prem implementation looking to transform into a cloud company.
Yep.
It's hard, especially when you're like, you're building new in the cloud, but you're still deploying your legacy stuff on-prem, and
Yep.
you're deploying hybrid. So my question is kind of like looking forward, like eventually, I don't know how long it'll be, but there will be a time where that's less and less the case. Now obviously in a cloud situation, like that's part of that is like the managed service is part of the value proposition, but how does it change the managed services world? As I'm not saying hybrid created or on-prem created managed services, but how do you see things changing as things are more in the cloud?
Yeah, so I mean, I think every company that sells a software product, if they're not already working their butts off to become a software as a service company, they should be, or they will be at some point. And you know, the biggest reason, I think it was, I'm trying to think of a good example. Maybe it'll come to me, but what software vendors, ISVs, started to figure out, gosh, probably about 10 years ago is, actually, I think, you know, Atlassian is a great example. I'm sure most of the folks on this call use Jira, right? Or some other Atlassian product in their job. You know, I think Atlassian was fairly early to figure this out, but, you know, if I make software and a software product, then I have to hand that software product off to my customer to do things like install and configure and maintain and, you know, run, et cetera. I actually now have lost control over maybe 50% of the customer experience. 50% of the customer experience and 50% of my reputation, 50% of my brand and the awareness and the perception of my product is now entirely out of my control. How many software products were like great products, but maybe were a little bit tough to install and maintain and configure and keep running, that got a bad rep, that maybe failed in a market or didn't do as nearly as well as they could have in a market, because that 50% that was out of their control, you know, went badly for them, right? And so for every software company that's got their act together, unless you're in something very niche like manufacturing process control or something like that, right? You want to have 100% of the control over your customer's experience. And that's the biggest reason to go cloud. That's the biggest reason to go software as a service. The auxiliary benefits like that we've talked about on this call, like flexibility, agility, ability to experiment cheaply, quickly, efficiently, fail fast. For some companies, they save a bunch of money, but most folks don't. All those are just ancillary in my mind. If I'm a software company, the biggest reason why I would invest in transitioning to a software as a service company is it's vital to my business to own as much of the customer experience as I possibly can.
Oh, that's really good. Thank you.
Hi, Corey. This is Ranga.
Hi, Ranga.
My question is on the disadvantages of the partnership. You talked about opportunity cost and loss of focus.
Yeah.
So yeah, personally, I experienced those two disadvantages when we partnered with one vendor. Yeah.
Okay.
So one thing is, yes, that opportunity cost us like $200K because they have to do some work to make this partnership work. So
yep.
They asked us to pay for that. So what do they do? So, but that become 300K. So like that. So at the end, and one more thing is loss of focus. Like we started the partnership with the one goal, but at the end we are able to fulfill only the 70% of that thing.
Okay.
And also most of the time they come back and say, no, my product work like this only. So you want partnership work? Yeah, we have to do this way. We cannot change this. So how can we mitigate, or how can we reduce this things in a partnership,
So that's a great question and a great set of points. So so let me share one of my experiences. So I'm resharing this slide here, and the leftmost arrow about getting into a partnership in the development phase, really early in the product life cycle. So one of the products that I managed at Island was a product like this with the leftmost arrow, and it was it fortunately and unfortunately was a huge success, and had a ton of high growth, and was a great growing product for the company. But a lot of the decisions that were made back here in the development phase by the vendor turned out to be terrible decisions later on during the growth phase. And so like a lot of my job became, how can I try to cover up these problems or these weaknesses for our customers? How can I try to find ways to exert leverage on the partner, gathering deal loss reports and customer churn reports and that kind of thing, and saying like, here's a dollar figure on how your poor decisions have affected my business. And it works to some degree, but it sounds like maybe what happened in your situation and happened in my situation as well is, I was the pig. I was more, my company was more committed to the partnership than, I was one of a dozen partners all going to market with this technology. And yes, we were number one in the world, but still, we didn't have enough leverage to get what we didn't needed done fast enough. And so really riding this whole product life cycle, in my experience, it was just a matter of, here's the things I can control, and I'm going to do my damnedest to do what I can to try to address the weaknesses in the product, try to overcome those. You know, for example, like the UI, the actual UI element of that product was so bad that we did actually go and create our own. And, you know, so again, that was wonderful as a product manager. Then we're back to that build by partner thing where now I'm building things and I have a little bit more control over this situation. It's tough. And it's frustrating to be the pig at breakfast. But I hope that answers your question. I don't have any like clear silver bullet advice for you in that situation.
No, that helps, Corey. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
In the partnerships that you have developed, what are the actual, say, legal, the legal transactions that took place in order to, that benefited you, or what would you recommend in terms of, sometimes you get into partnerships, what you think are partnerships, and you have to back out of them. And those can be challenging if you don't have the right legal contract in place.
Yep.
In other cases, it could be really easy depending on how you set things up and what that relationship is like.
Yep.
In my experience, some of that work can take an extremely long period of time and really delay things. What would you recommend?
So, one shortcut to trying to at the contract negotiation phase, instead of trying to, or in addition to trying to negotiate as hard as you can for building in every possible remedy that you might want, or that might help you in the future. In addition to that, you should do that, of course, but in addition to that, most technology vendors, that both software and hardware technology vendors that I've worked with these days offer, like a flexible consumption type model, where instead of paying $100,000 up front, for some piece of technology, you're paying some monthly fee, and it's more of a service, even upstream to us as a service provider. It's a service to us versus a CapEx to us. And so the shortcut in addition to legal remedies, I've had a lot of success, or have been able to retain control over those types of partnerships by controlling the purse strings as well. And even though you might pay more overall for engaging in a more flexible consumption type model from a technology provider for the first year, in most of my experiences, it's well worth the premium to maintain your ability to walk away and control those purse strings, so that even if 18 months down the road the partnership is terrible and you went through the contract again and there's really no great way to get out of the contract, you can in addition, you can say, well, I've spent X with you so far and you're not getting another monthly check from me, or I'll be, since this is a flexible consumption spending, I'll be reducing my spending to 0. That kind of thing. So trying to control the purse strings in addition to the legal remedies are another great way to help manage a partnership. So if you can, like I said, again, I don't know the industries that you guys work in, but in my experience, all of the upstream hardware and software vendors all allowed us to engage in that kind of a trial period, but not even a trial period, just a flexible spend.
Awesome. All good questions. Any other questions for Corey? All right. I think that means it's time to call it. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming in. Thank you, Corey, for agreeing to do the presentation. Really appreciate it. Couple of housekeeping bits, I guess, as we wrap up. To call back to the slides from earlier, obviously, I assume you're all on the Meetup page. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't have seen the invite. But it is good to check out ProductTankPittsburgh.com. That just goes to a LinkedIn group that we set up a while ago. There's a lot fewer people on it, but they're usually folks that are like, involved in talking with each other. Someone actually just posted on it earlier today. I just saw with a job opening. So something to check out there. And stay tuned for the announcement, like Nate said earlier, on the next one that'll be coming up next month. And we'll be bringing in some additional viewpoints for around the product world. Nate, anything you want to say in closing?
I think that's it. Thanks, everyone. And thank you, Corey.
Thanks so much, everyone. We'll also post on those groups whenever we get this up on a YouTube page and able to share the slides out. So thanks so much, everyone. Have a great night. Stay safe.
All right. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you all.